Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Jordan Christie.
And I'm Barry Graham.
We highlight the week's news and stories happening all over Hampton Roads. In this week's program, construction at the Hampton Roads Bridge-Tunnel had disrupted the habitat of the popular seabird colony. A $15 million project is moving forward to build a crescent-shaped island for the birds.
The longer we have to curate this colony at its current location, the greater our risks become of something significant impacting the colony.
If you caught a flight out of Norfolk International over the last few months, you might have noticed some heavier foot traffic, and that's because the airport recorded a record number of passengers this summer.
And Chesapeake Regional Medical Center is now a provisional Level 3 trauma center.
It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. A new study from Old Dominion University may offer earlier warning for deadly disease outbreaks. WHRO health reporter Yi-Ching Wang reports it allows researchers to identify which risk factors to tackle first.
The predictive model tracks unusual weekly spikes in 14 causes of deaths across major diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, and COVID. Assistant Public Health Professor Aditya Chakraborty from ODU says the model can flag unusual increases in disease rates and review how multiple risk factors interact to drive illness.
So if the mortality is exceeding, that means something is going wrong. And we need to inform that to the public health professionals. So they should be more alert.
Chakraborty says early disease detection gives researchers and public officials a way to see which risk factors to tackle first to improve survival and prevent deaths. Data from the National Institutes of Health show mortality rates from major diseases are higher in Hampton Roads than the state average. Yi-Ching Wang, WHO News.
State and federal officials are working on a $15 million project to relocate the popular seabird colony at the Hampton Roads Bridge-Tunnel. WHRO's Catherine Hafner says a crescent-shaped island is part of the plan.
Thousands of seabirds like terns and gulls nest around the HRBT and were displaced by its expansion. The state stepped in and drew them to adjacent Fort Wool instead. But Becky Gwynn with the Department of Wildlife Resources says using the historic fort was never a long-term solution.
The longer we have to curate this colony at its current location, the greater our risks become of something significant impacting the colony.
The state is partnering with the Army Corps to build a new crescent-shaped island for the birds, just south of downtown Hampton. Kim Kolsch with the Corps says it'll be mostly sand.
They just want a very flat, open area where they can see far and go foraging and then come back.
Officials hope to start construction in 2027. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Advocates say the root cause of Virginia's housing problem is there's simply not enough homes. Newport News delegate Shelley Simons met with local groups this week to talk about what can be done. WHRO's Toby Cox digs into their concerns.
Simons told the group she wants to end parking minimums in Virginia. Director of Yes in My Backyard, Jillian Pressman, says parking requirements mean builders scale things back. For example, local parking minimums could require up to 3 parking spaces per unit. For a 30-unit building, that would mean 90 parking spaces.
So now instead of a building that could house 30 young families or 30 young professionals, it now houses 10, and all the rest is just car. And this is particularly problematic in areas where there is transit nearby or there is a bus station.
Simon says a similar bill passed with bipartisan support in North Carolina. She says opposition to the bill in Virginia will likely come from the local level. Toby Cox, WHRO News.
More than 500 people gathered in Winchester last week in memory of Charlie Kirk, co-founder of the conservative youth organization Turning Point USA. Kirk's death has become a rallying point for political conservatives and drew President Donald Trump to a national memorial service this week. WMRA's Randy B. Hagee reports from the event in Virginia's Shenandoah region.
People carried umbrellas, candles, and American flags as they packed into the courtyard outside of the Shenandoah Valley Civil War Museum on Winchester's Pedestrian Mall. Speakers focused largely on a Christian message, singing hymns and reciting scripture. Organizer Willie Deutsch, a member of Grace Anglican Church in Clark County, asked those gathered to pray for the country, the Kirk family, and for the salvation of the suspected gunman, Tyler Robinson.
More than anything, Charlie wanted to be remembered for his bold Christian faith and was expectantly looking forward to being in heaven with Jesus, where he is right now. He wanted people to do 4 things, which I hope we'll all remember to do. He wanted us to read our Bible, pray to God, go to church, and get married and have kids.
Tricia Lawrence, the development director of Obamacare Pregnancy Resource Center, which has clinics in Winchester and Martinsburg, West Virginia, said Kirk believed life began at conception, and so does her organization.
He once shared that the one thing that he wanted to be remembered for in death was his faith. And I think he most certainly is being remembered for that. I don't believe he said or did things to intentionally cause contention among people. He was simply being obedient to what the Lord had called him to do, and he did it well.
Kirk made a number of statements on his podcast and at public speaking events that have come under renewed scrutiny since his death, such as, quote, all the time in urban America, prowling blacks go for fun to go target white people, and, quote, the left literally needs endless, constantly increasing migration from the third world. The Great Replacement strategy, which is well underway every single day in our southern border, is a strategy to replace white rural America with something different. They hate those of you that live in rural and small America, end quote. But the vigil attendees I spoke with were focused on Kirk's religious faith, including Dale Disk and Derek Rosalie.
Charlie Kirk's courage and his belief in Jesus and how he wanted everyone to know and be saved.
When I asked generally about his more divisive positions,
I don't feel knowledgeable enough.
We're not here for political reasons.
No.
I'm here to share in both the pain and the happiness. So
Yes.
that's what we're here for.
Yep.
So nothing else.
Nothing else.
Jeremy Jenkins, who attended from Inwood, West Virginia, told me he wasn't sure how to summarize the central messages of Kirk's beliefs.
He didn't take no for an answer. I mean, he kept what he believed in, he kept true to it. So he just stayed with all his beliefs, and he didn't let anybody persuade him any other way.
Christy Horner said she and her family had followed Kirk's career for a long time.
I just really felt like it was always tactful and honest. And I know sometimes that's hard to swallow. I can't say that we always believed 100% of what he did believe, but I appreciated the way he did it.
I asked what she thought about the trajectory of political violence in America in the wake of Kirk's assassination and that of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark.
Anytime that we can all come out and just experience any type of political or faith-based action without being violent, that's a positive. And I think that's something that makes America different, and that's important too.
Willie Deutsch said we need to embrace disagreement to counter political violence.
I mean, it is definitely on the rise, and it's a huge problem, right? And it comes from this idea that words are violence. When people believe that words are violence, then actual violence in response to words I don't like is justified.
He thinks many of the people upset with Kirk's statements have taken them out of context.
Charlie's went very viral, but he wasn't purely speaking for the soundbite. He was trying to get to the heart of an issue. And so in the course of laying things out, he might have a sentence or two that sounded crazy, but he's trying to set out the context of situations. But yeah, I mean, look, when people speak truth, there are going to be things that people disagree with, and disagreement is part of political discourse. If we only preserve the speech we like, we're not protecting free speech.
Deutsch hopes the vigil pointed people towards Jesus.
It takes something supernatural and outside of politics to really change things and bring hope and a difference to this world.
Tyler Robinson was charged with the aggravated murder of Charlie Kirk and other felonies related to the shooting. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, the Norfolk School Board delayed a vote on a school closure plan last week. We'll have more on what that could mean for the district, but first, Charter Communications will be reaching out to Suffolk residents as it completes broadband expansion work ahead of a 2026 deadline. WHR's Nick McNamara brings us the details.
Charter says it has until June to spend federal grant money earmarked for extending high-speed internet into unserved areas in rural and Southside Virginia. But the company needs owner permission when its build-out plans reach private property. In Suffolk, there are more than 450 locations that Charter will contact. Charter Senior Director of Government Affairs Joe Prater says for the first time in one of their rural builds, they'll be sending property owners letters informing them of the funding available to extend broadband service. notice to them. They'll have 60 days to reply.
If they don't respond or if they deny us access, we'll have to work with the state to then adjust the bill.
Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
Have you noticed more people around Norfolk International Airport than usual over the past few months? WHRO's Toby Cox reports the airport saw more passengers this summer than ever.
June, July, and August were the 3 busiest months ever in the airport's 87-year history. Chris Jones with Norfolk International says it's typical for the airport to see more passengers in the summer.
I think a lot of people that come to Hampton Roads do so because of the things that can be done during those months. Beach traffic, amusement parks, a lot of just the things that you want to do outdoors that you can do in Virginia draws people here in the summer.
Jones also says it's easier than ever to get to Norfolk now that more airlines are offering flights. Nearly 490,000 people traveled through the airport in August alone. That's 1% more than the previous August. 2025 is shaping up to be the airport's busiest year ever. Toby Cox, WHRO News.
Early voting started last week in Virginia. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson has stories from polling places in Virginia Beach during the first day of early voting.
Charles Wilson cast an early ballot in Virginia Beach. He says his parents were involved in the civil rights movement in Georgia, so he votes as soon as he can every year.
The fact that we can vote this early, it is also a testament and an honor to those who fought for us to vote. To me, it's just, why not? I mean, I was able to walk in here and get it done. Now I can go have coffee and breakfast, and I'm retired now. The rest of my day is my own.
John Spears in Virginia Beach, though, hasn't made a habit out of voting for a while. He says he went to the polls for the first time in 13 years on the first day of voting in Virginia Beach.
A couple of weeks ago, I just decided that I needed to start voting again. I needed to exercise the rights that, people have fought for a couple hundred years now, almost 250 years we've been protecting the right to vote, so I wanted to exercise my right to vote.
Anyone can vote early at their local registrar's office. Some localities have additional early voting locations. Virginia also allows anyone to request an absentee ballot until October 24th. To find more information about where and how to vote early, visit whro.org/elections or vote.elections.virginia.gov. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
A new legislative panel is looking into scrapping Virginia's off-year elections. Nearly every other state elects its lawmakers and governors during even years to align with the presidential election. Our media partners at Virginia Public Media in Richmond ask, what's the deal with Virginia's off-year elections and how did they come to be? VPM News editor Whitney Evans has the story.
The state constitution of 1851 permitted Virginians for the first time to elect a governor and created the office of lieutenant governor. The first election held under its authority happened that same year, an odd year. And that's the whole story of how Virginia's off-year elections began. Just kidding. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, only Virginia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and New Jersey have off-year elections. Virginia's is an accidental artifact of post-Civil War politics.
People assume there is a reason.
Brent Tarter is a retired research historian and senior editor at the Library of Virginia.
People assume that this has kept state politics and federal politics separate in Virginia, so that you focus on federal issues and federal personalities in even-numbered years. And that, in fact, has been the way things have worked now for 150 years. It's not the reason, though.
Virginia had an opportunity to sink its elections after the Civil War, but there was a hiccup. When the war ended in 1865, Congress required most of the former Confederate states to write new constitutions guaranteeing black men the right to vote. The election that would take place after the 1867 and 68 Constitutional Convention would have aligned the gubernatorial and presidential elections. But Virginia's 68 election never happened. Why? Because this was, spoiler alert, unpopular among leaders of the former Confederacy.
And they dragged their feet, and they were opposed to it, and they put as many obstacles in the way of that reform as they could.
In Virginia, a majority of delegates at the Convention of 67, including 24 black men, were loyal to the United States. The draft document introduced free public schooling, universal male suffrage, and barred many former Confederate leaders from voting. The Confederate Guard resented the federal takeover and black suffrage, but were especially salty about the provisions that disenfranchised them.
The difficulty was they might not be able to ratify a constitution if they didn't get enough support from ex-Confederates.
The disagreement overtook the scheduled 68 election.
The divisions within the state were so strong that nothing could be done to compromise them.
Ex-Confederates ultimately reached an accord with Congress and President Ulysses S. Grant in D.C. The clauses disenfranchising them would be determined separately from ratification. In the summer of 1869, voters overwhelmingly approved the state constitution and rejected the provisions that were unfriendly to ex-Confederates. The general election for statewide office was held that November. Thus, the odd-year cycle for Virginia elections was seemingly etched into stone. Tarter says that historically insulated the Commonwealth from national politics, but not anymore.
Now, national politics is constant, state politics is constant. And, you can make a good argument that having elections all the time is too much.
The numbers bear that out. Data from the Virginia Public Access Project show Virginians are less likely to show up to off-year elections. Just 40% turned out in 2023 compared to 70% in 2024. The new General Assembly subcommittee studying elections consolidation meets today to hear from local officials about possible costs and impacts. Tarter suggests it's the most concerted effort yet to change this process. But
there is that old Virginia way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the question is it broke?
Chesapeake Regional Medical Center is now designated a provisional Level 3 adult trauma center. WHRO health reporter Yi-Ching Wang breaks down the change.
The new designation allows Chesapeake Regional to treat severely injured patients who previously had to be taken to Norfolk. This extends trauma care to nearly 450,000 people across Hampton Roads and northeastern North Carolina. Trauma Services Medical Director Martin O'Grady says the designation gives patients faster access to life-saving treatment in their own community.
The farther you have to travel when you're critically injured, it really impacts your survival and recovery from significant injuries.
The hospital upgraded its blood bank, added new trauma equipment, and developed an alert system to notify nurses when severely injured patients are on the way. Nursing staff must complete 3 specialized courses outlining the standards and procedures for providing trauma care. Yi-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
The Norfolk School Board delayed a vote on a school closure plan last week developed by 2 board members and interim superintendent James Pohl. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson has more on what that could mean for the district.
Benjamin Smith is a 4th grader at St. Helena Elementary. He asked the school board to reconsider closing his school.
I don't want my school to be shut down because I got to go to walk to school. St. Helena is not that far from my house. I know everybody in there. I know everywhere to get in, everywhere to get out. I know the ways to walk home, know the bus stop.
Benjamin was one of about 24 people who spoke about the proposed closings. Nina Etney told the school board she has 4 grandchildren in Norfolk Public Schools. 2 of them attend P.B. Young Elementary, which is on the draft list of schools to close.
These schools are not just buildings. They are the heart of our community. They serve as gathering places, polling places, and safe hubs for families. Closing them would disrupt our neighborhoods, weaken community bonds, cost dedicated teachers their jobs, along with the deep relationships they've built with students and families over decades.
When School Board Chair Sarah D. Calogero eventually made a motion to approve the plan, it was met with silence. Board members received an email earlier this month from City Council member Tommy Smeagol warning them if they delayed a decision much longer on closures, it could impact how the city funds schools. The board is scheduled to meet next week to reconsider the topic. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
Norfolk Public Schools is a member of HRETA, which holds WHRO's license.
Almost every form of modern technology, from cell phones to MRI machines to fighter jets, relies on rare earth elements, 17 metals that are hard to extract from the earth. Most of the world's supply now comes from China, but the U.S. government urgently is trying to develop a homegrown American supply chain, especially for military use. Jay Price reports for the American Homefront Project.
A big reason is the military needs rare earths in so many things: planes, warships, missiles, tanks, drones, and more, with China providing the vast majority of processed rare earth elements, as well as the rare earth magnets used in electric motors. The Pentagon is dependent on one of its biggest geopolitical rivals, and in recent years, China has weaponized this advantage by slapping on trade restrictions.
This is called the strip caster. And so what it's doing is it's melting all of this material into a molten metal, and it's a little hot, so I wouldn't touch it.
This is one of the places trying to end China's stranglehold. A small 6-month-old pilot factory in Durham, North Carolina, where a startup company called Vulcan Elements has begun making rare earth-enhanced magnets. Odd machines with circuitry out of a science fiction movie are spread around the factory floor, many of them using proprietary technology. CEO John Maslin says the company currently can only make about 10 metric tons a year, a fraction of what the nation needs, but that's about to change.
We just announced a $65 million Series A.
That's startup lingo for a significant injection of money from investors, in this case toward building a full-scale factory. Though it's been in business for only 2 years, the company already has more than $10 million in deals with the military and others with commercial customers. And everything it uses, the ingredients, the machinery, the software, is free of any connection with China. Maslin, a former Navy officer, says he's trying to help build not just a company, but an industrial sector that's crucial for national security.
I think that this industry can go and solve the problem in the United States and in the West.
The Trump administration has been aggressively cutting deals to create a U.S.-based supply chain, including a multi-billion-dollar arrangement with a California company that runs the nation's only major rare earth mining and processing operation. But the big push for a rare earth supply chain predates the current trade war with China. Laura Taylor Calais was Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Base Policy during the Biden administration.
I think we've been, over the last 8 years or so, sharpening the toolkit that we have within the U.S. government to address strategic and critical materials.
Those tools, she says, include creating the first ever national defense industrial strategy and working with Congress to boost funding for critical minerals. Other experts on the industry agree that the focus on rare earths has been bipartisan.
It has really been a team effort from both sides to get to where we are.
That's Gracelyn Baskarin, director of the Critical Minerals Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She says one challenge is that some types of rare earth elements can't be commercially mined here. So the United States has begun working with allies such as Australia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia to source some of the 17 elements.
It's not even about what we want all the time. It's about where is the geology. You can only work along the lines of the geology that God gave you. Where do you find a deposit that has the density to make it commercially viable?
With that bipartisan pushing, the government is making serious progress, she said. Still, she predicts it could be close to 10 years for the U.S., with help from its allies, to gain full control over its supply of the materials that have become essential to modern warfare and modern life. I'm Jay Price, reporting.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Catherine Hafner, Nick McNamara, Yiqing Wang, and Michelle Hankerson, WVTF's Pamela D'Angelo, WMRA's Randy B. Hagee, VPM's Whitney Evans, and Jay Price with the American Homefront Project. Also, Connor Worley, who produced today's show.
A reminder that you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed. You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Barry Graham.
And I'm Jordan Christie. Have a great weekend.